All hail the king of the three-star. Yes, PJ Fleck in Minnesota, they're putting together a recruiting class with their kind of guys. Over the years, they have developed three-star players into all Big Ten players and NFL players. But can this approach continue? Can this approach lead them to the same amount of success that they have enjoyed over the last couple of seasons? Before I get into that, just a reminder to hit subscribe if you haven't already. Big Ten content all off season long. Always crush that like button to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses. I'm going to list off some players that have been the building block to Minnesota Golden Gopher football ever since PJ Fleck has been on campus, and every single one of these players was a three-star recruit. The first group is guys that were recruited and signed under PJ Fleck, and then there's a second group that were on campus a year before PJ, but really developed and blossomed under Fleck and his assistant coaches. The first group, the guys that Fleck recruited, Fleck guys: Muhammad Ibrahim, Chris Ottman-Bell, Brevin Spanford, Justin Wally, Mariano Sori-Marin, John Michael Schmitz, Boye Mafe, Tanner Morgan, Justin Wally. That is a great group of Minnesota Golden Gophers. Those are some maroon and gold all-stars on that list. Every single one of those guys are three-star players. You look at Muhammad Ibrahim, he is in the conversation as one of the very best Minnesota Golden Gophers of all time. Even though Tanner Morgan fell off later in his career, he was key to the success that they had in 2019. You look at John Michael Schmitz, maybe one of the best offensive linemen that they've had at Minnesota, and they've had some good ones, including recent College Football Hall of Fame inductee Greg Esslinger. And then you look at guys like Boye Mafe on defense as well, and a lot of those current guys that we could really see them take a big time jump this season. And then these are three-star players that were on campus for a year before Fleck became the head coach, but they really developed under PJ and found a lot of their success under PJ Fleck. You look at Tyler Johnson, Antoine Winfield Jr., and Kamal Martin. The point I'm trying to make here is PJ Fleck runs one of the very best developmental college football programs in the Big Ten and maybe in the country. He knows what player he's looking after. They have a recruiting base at Minnesota that they are able to key on and that they were able to thrive on as well. They know the type of players that they want to bring into Minneapolis, they want to bring into Dinkytown, and at the end of the day, they know that they can develop them into these types of football players. This is the niche that Minnesota has carved out for themselves. They're not going to recruit like Ohio State, like Michigan and Penn State and USC, who's coming into the conference, right? Even programs maybe like a Wisconsin or an Iowa could, not saying they are. PJ is definitely changing the conversation, but could even be a notch above them or maybe have been a little bit historically. PJ Fleck is changing the name of the game, not only in what he's able to do in recruiting rankings, but what he's able to do once they get on campus. That's the big part of all of this. Once they get on campus and developing them into 4-star and 5-star type of talent that can eventually go to the NFL. Currently in this 2024 class for Minnesota, they have 18 3-star recruits. That leads the country. Depth in a class this year in 2024. According to 24/7 Sports, they're the number 10 class in the country right now. Now that's going to change, okay, folks? Alabama is not going to finish below Minnesota in the recruiting rankings. That's just not going to happen. Okay, let's live in reality. Oh, there goes gravity. Let's come back to reality. So we got to really look at this. If Minnesota is able to grab another 4-star, a third 4-star, right? They just went into the state of Wisconsin, grabbed a top 5 player in that state as their first 4-star commit. If they're able to get a couple more 4-stars, this could be a top 20. This could be a top 25 class in the country, and these Minnesota classes just continue to get better, it seems. And the better talent that they bring in, considering the way they develop talent, is going to equal more wins on the football field for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. So obviously the big question is, with this revamped Big Ten, with this revamped schedule, USC and UCLA coming into the conference, you're playing every team in the Big Ten every 2 years. Now you're not playing Michigan every 3 or 4 years. You're Ohio State and Penn State. There was a big gap, I think, for Minnesota between meetings against Penn State prior to their meeting there. 2019, and I think 2022 was their next meeting against the Nittany Lions. Now you're playing every team in the Big Ten every 2 years, which means you're going to have stiffer competition more often. Can running a developmental program where the majority of your recruits are 3-star kids, can that still get you 8 wins? Can that still get you 9 wins in the Big Ten? I believe, to answer that question, yes. PJ Fleck can still run a similar type of recruiting plan. PJ Fleck and this coaching staff can still be a developmental program, just like Iowa, just like Wisconsin, Nebraska, Illinois, just like all those teams that want to be developmental programs that bring in their kids and develop them once they get to their junior and their senior year into really good players, which equals really good football teams. The coaches that know this plan know where they sit in the grand scheme of things. PJ Fleck in Minnesota is just another example of that. So, that's, if your non-conference schedule goes well, that's 3 losses, 4 losses in the Big Ten, and Minnesota's schedule in 2024 and 2025. They're playing the big boys, just 2 of them every year. 2024 at Michigan, at UCLA versus Ohio State. 2025 at Penn State, and then they're home against USC. So even if you do lose those 2 games, there's still kind of room for error, so to speak, against some of these teams that maybe they haven't had success over, like in Iowa. They've kind of gone back and forth a little bit over Wisconsin, even though the Gophers have held the majority as of late against the Wisconsin Badgers. So being a developmental program, having that base can still get you to that 8 to the 9 win level. But Minnesota has been in contention for the Big Ten West title, really, it seems like every year since 2019. To get to the Big Ten championship contention is going to take a whole lot of more oomph to get to that level for programs like Minnesota and Wisconsin and Iowa and Illinois and etc. Okay, because prior to this in the West Division, you were competing against other developmental programs, like you look at Wisconsin and you look at Iowa, right? You were competing against those types of teams, so you had to develop better than those teams. Now it's Ohio State, it's USC, it's Penn State, it's Michigan. These are teams that recruit 5-star kids. They recruit a bunch of 4-star kids. They recruit really good talent. So you can still have your base of 3 stars and some 4 stars in there that you develop, but you're going to need to try to match the talent. Try is the key word there. Try to match the talent of a Michigan, a Penn State, an Ohio State, and a USC. And I think a big way to do that is the transfer portal, because that's what these teams are going to be, folks, in Tier 2. Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, UCLA, Illinois, Nebraska, Michigan State, Maryland. Teams like that. They're going to be solid. They're going to be good enough to win 5 conference games, maybe 6 conference games. But if they want to take the next step as a program, if they want to get to that next level, the transfer portal is going to be very key, because Cade McNamara is a great example of this, right? You have a guy that went out there and won a Big Ten championship, saw Iowa and saw an opportunity to step in there and maybe do some things with the Iowa Hawkeyes. There's going to be opportunities. There's going to be over-recruiting in the Big Ten, in the SEC, big programs in the ACC. There's going to be over-recruiting, and there's going to be potential for kids to transfer into a school like a Minnesota and be the starting quarterback for a couple of years and be in big-time games and see the development of yourself, right? You talk about development, right? You see a guy that's maybe playing in a Big Ten school, SEC school, doesn't get the playing time and wants to develop. They might come to a place like Minnesota. That's why the development of Ethan Kaliakmanis is not only big for right now, but also big for the future at Minnesota. I think other quarterbacks, maybe potential transfers in the future, want to see that this offense and this coaching staff can develop that position, and it's any other position as well. If you continue to be a developmental program in this revamped Big Ten, where there's no divisions, you're not going to get to the Big Ten championship game, right? It's just not going to happen. Okay, you need to either step up your recruiting big time, or you need to be able to grab those really good players at the big skill positions that can really take you to that next level in the Big Ten standings. PJ Fleck has developed a great developmental program at Minnesota. Can he take it to the next level in a revamped Big Ten? It is sure going to be fun to find out. I want to hear what you guys think. Do you think a developmental program like a Minnesota can continue to win 8 to 9 wins every year in a revamped Big Ten schedule? And can they possibly compete for a Big Ten championship down the road? Or do you think they might need to adjust their expectations a little bit? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm Big Ten Ted. We'll see you in the next one.